Yes, as he said, I'm Hanna Kahlert. I'm from MIDiA Research, and we are a market research and consumer insights company across digital entertainment. So our loudest coverage is music, but we also do video and games. And my specialty is in consumer insights across things happening in all of those. So we thought it would be good for me to give an overview of the creator economy. So with that, let's just get started with some of the facts. The barrier between artists and audiences has been dramatically lowered. Social platforms now enable direct engagement with creators, so it's not just about listening to it on the radio, but they can talk on Discord or Twitter. As a result, well, not as a result, but basic creator tools have not only become available to consumers, but they have become integral to social platforms. You see this across TikTok, Instagram, etc., etc. User-generated content, as a result, is now an integral part of entertainment ecosystems. So anything from meme compilations on YouTube is just as valid a proposition as watching a TV show on Netflix. Meanwhile, independent artists and the artist direct sector, so artists who publish themselves and do everything by themselves, has been growing, which is coming into conflict with revenue share. So you are probably all aware, studying the music business, that it's much harder to be a music artist now in terms of making money and streaming. So to be continued on that one. And this is the basis of the creator economy, which is basically the economy we have today. So the big question is, how do we get here? Well, not the big question, but the question we'll start with is, how do we get here? So we started with, you had tools, you had studios, you had to go to a music label to have the resources to become a music creator. Then we had Logic Pro and Pro Tools, which, while they weren't necessarily fully available to everyone, technically, if you wanted to, you could have them on your computer. Then we had stuff like GarageBand, Ableton, and YouTube, which not only allowed anyone to create music, but also to share it with anyone directly themselves, so you didn't need a publisher anymore. Now we have TikTok, BandLab, Splice, all of these things that you can basically just do it all on your phone. This is opening the available audience not only of artists, but just general creators. It's sort of blurring the line in between them, which is why we're calling this the creator economy. It's no longer just a music economy. And this isn't specific to music either, so we have these tools across every genre. What this is doing on the consumer side is that it's changing the original model. So you had production, distribution, consumption in designated channels and designated places. But this is now completely distributed across many channels and in many ways. It's now easier than ever to become a music artist, but it's now harder than ever to, stay one and make a career as a very famous one. As a result, it's not just, UK, US content that's being distributed globally, but a lot of localized cultures, communities, and genres are being distributed globally. So this is true of, like Dutch rap, K-pop is now very popular globally. It's also true of local language TV shows. And, these things are now on Netflix, and a lot of people all over the world can watch them. They may not be a hit in their domestic markets, but they're now finding their niches worldwide. And we're kind of seeing, sort of related to this, that rest of world is growing its streaming share. So as their needs are being met and as their markets are growing, they're growing in terms of the broader industry. Now, the impacts that this has had on the industry so far. Well, not just the industry, but we'll start with the industry. Independent label and artist direct revenue shares are growing steadily on a copyright ownership basis, so not a distribution basis, because that kind of depresses a lot of the independents distribute through major labels. But we'll look at just the copyright ownership share is growing. As you can see, it's not massive because they're all growing, but it is growing in proportion. And this is particularly true in emerging markets. Independent labels have the largest share when it comes specifically to Asia Pacific and rest of world. this is also having an impact on strategy. So when we did a survey of executives, they said that their strategic priorities were expanding into new revenue streams and being smarter about marketing, both of which are very important when you're having to compete not only with the rest of the industry, but with anyone who has a smartphone and wants to distribute their own music. Vive la TikTok. And when we asked them about streaming market dynamics, the majority of them said it's harder to build artist careers because the market is dominated by song volume. There's sort of a discrepancy here in that in terms of strategic priorities, some of them said they want to focus on more artists and some of them said they want to focus on less artists, so the path forward is still unclear, but these are the emerging difficulties that these people in the industry are facing. Now, when we look at artists as a result of greater volume, we have a very small proportion of artists making the most money, and this distributes out very unevenly. So again, very easy to become an artist, very difficult to become a very, very successful one. Now, this is actually resulting in a change of what artists define as success, which is actually really cool from a cultural perspective. When we asked in 2020, what does success look like for you? Most of them said, become respected and recognized in my scene, build loyal fan base of any size, and just to make music and have people enjoy it. So this was obviously the early stage of the pandemic, and then we saw a lot of, well, the interesting fact that as a lot of people were sitting at home in their living rooms, a lot of artists decided to take this time to make more music. So we asked again in 2022, and most of them said earning a living from music regardless of fame, so it's now no longer about being a global superstar, but rather just, you know, finding your niche and making, hopefully, a living. Improving my music and creating the best music I can, becoming respected and recognized in my scene again. Interestingly, this does have regional variations. So for rest of world artists, they were most keen on improving music and creating the best music they can, reaching a large global audience and growing a large social media following. So as these are emerging markets, streaming revenues, because it's the same globally, will be a little bit better for them. And also there's a less established market for them to make it big in. But when you look at the more established markets like Europe, they wanted to become more respected and recognized in their scenes and having a small but loyal fan base. So the priorities are changing depending not only on where artists are in their careers, but also what the market is like that they have to make their careers in. Now, we look at this on the consumer side, which is helpful because the consumers are becoming the creators, in a sense. We're seeing a shift in what consumption is. So there's lean forward or lean back consumption, depending on what your industry definition is, which is the kind of traditional model of very passive consumption. It is created, it is distributed, it is consumed. But now there's lean in, so they can engage with it. They can like, comment, share, and even lean through. They can remix, they can make their own, they can do covers, they can make a musical on TikTok as, you know, part of a fandom for a show. So this is changing how consumers are expecting to interact and also what skills they're developing while they're doing it, and that means what they're then going to go on to do outside of pure consumption. For consumers, well, yeah, so we're seeing there's the current wave of these lean through behaviors, but there's also going to be the next wave. So those who post now will be creating next. So basically, not only is the problem of too much content and too little time or money a problem now, but it's going to get worse. Yay. So what comes next? I feel like I might have rushed through this a little bit, so sorry if I talk very quickly. But I just wanted to leave you off with some concepts and some big existential questions. Social platforms are becoming the new home of experiential music. So it's not just about listening on the radio, you're now listening on TikTok, Instagram. You can watch a live stream on Reddit, you can watch a live stream on Twitch. Music is becoming something to interact with rather than just listen to. You can remix it, you can cover it with your friends, you can support your own creator by just tipping them while you're watching their live stream. creativity, as a result, has now become a product. So it's not just create, consume, but creation is now part of consumption. What does that mean? Who knows? We'll find out. What it means, as a result, what it means to be an artist or to be part of a team behind an artist is changing. And so artists are now doing everything themselves. The teams behind them are now having to struggle with whole new expectations in terms of marketing, promotion. And so these things are still sort of in flux. A lot of these tools are very new, so we're experimenting a lot with how we use them. And the solutions we find to any of the problems in the industry are how we're going to use those. But I think there's going to be a couple of talks about that a bit later to explore that. And the big existential question really is the age of the superstar over? So what role can labels used to making superstars play for artists who are now used to doing everything themselves and wanting the freedom to do so in their own way? And then, obviously, the big hype questions, the big hashtag clickbait stuff is what role can NFTs, live streaming, and the metaverse potentially play in reworking the revenue model? So there's a lot of different hypotheses on these, a lot of different startups that are definitely trying to make a lot of money by proposing they have the solutions, but will they be able to? How will those play a role? We've already seen live streaming become a part of what it means to be an artist as a result of the pandemic, but yeah, there's other things to that as well. So, and with that, I think, oh yeah, actually, just a final slide to kind of prove this. Listenership is fragmenting, so there's fewer superstars. If this is what listening looks like today, what will it look like tomorrow? And with that, thank you very much. I think it's time for David to come back on the stage. I hope I didn't go too fast, but I made up all the time from last time.
No worries. Hanna, many thanks for your very insightful keynote. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions from the audience. I'd personally like to make the introduction for the Q&A somehow. One concept I thought was really interesting was the idea of lean through. Maybe you can go back to this slide if it's still available. Okay, we'll take some time to click back.
I'll keep clicking while you keep talking.
What's your perspective on that, like especially for artists? How do you think will it specifically change how music fans will interact, for example, with their favorite artists?
Yeah, so it's kind of a newer concept of leaning through, right? We've had it's also a question of measurement of success. So lean in is more traditional in terms of saying, oh, we got this many likes on Facebook, or we got this many comments, so we got this many shares. But consumers aren't just liking, commenting, and sharing anymore. They're remixing, making covers. When it comes to games, you know, they're making their own content and streaming it on YouTube. When it comes to video, they're making their own musicals as part of their fandom. And so when it comes to artists, we've seen, you know, Kanye came out with the Donda Stem. He basically said, you know, this is where music is going. I'm going to make you a tool to remix my songs. My song is not to be published just to be listened to. My song has been, or my album has been published for you to play with and make your own music with and listen to as you want it. So that's kind of I mean, he's a bit of a character, you know, but like, it's a bit of a proof of concept, right? If someone that big is saying like, this is my bet for the future, that's not nothing. And it's basically, as consumers are getting more and more, well, audiences, I guess calling them consumers is a bit like cold. We're all audiences here. As they're getting more and more used to being able to interact with and build things as part of their day-to-day on their phone, why would they settle for just, you know, listening and liking when they can make their own? So for artists, I imagine it means, you know, it's not enough to just get a like. An audience member might want to talk to them, or might want to have a meet and greet if they're a super fan, or might want to remix their song, or as a fan might, you know, use Ableton and create like their own thing as a result of it. So for artists, they can't expect anymore it to be like right thing, done, share. They're going to have to expect sort of a feedback loop that carries on.
So you would assume that artists and their respective managements and their labels should try to target these like super engaged fans who would become creators themselves, like specifically because they're much more engaged obviously than the other fans who are just leaning in?
Yeah, I think I had maybe another slide on this as well. I don't know. Basically, I mentioned before niche is the new mainstream. So for pretty much any marketing team, regardless of what kind of entertainment it is, it's becoming ever more important to target not just mainstream audiences, but your super fans. And the question then becomes, how do you find them? How do you locate them on the map? And then how do you engage with them? And this is going to change depending on the artist and the community, or the content and the community. But yes, basically, it's very important to target your super fans, your niche. For a lot of artists, it's becoming more and more important to target their super fans, their niche. And some of those may be creative, and some of them may not be. Some of them may just want to go to raves, but that's fine too.
All right. I have some more questions, but I would like to open up the discussion to the audience if there are any questions already. I see one hand here in the back.
Hey, you said that it's important to find the niche. So how do you find the niche?
Good question. Marketers all over the world are searching for the answer. It's basically... Oh, that's a good question, actually. Algorithms are doing a great job. You know how if you go on TikTok and it just sort of reads your mind and it shows you the content you want to see before you know how to see it. This is one of the reasons marketers are really interested in TikTok, not just because of its engagement potential, but because the fans you find on it are going to be like very highly targeted. So obviously you want to find, you know, demographics, but some of these fans will find the artists themselves and then following that. You really want to look for the fans who are the loudest, the most engaged, buying the most merch, like most keen to go to festivals. And again, that will change a little bit depending on the community, but there are signs. Hope that helps.
Ja, wir haben sehr, sehr viele Meldungen. Einmal hier.
Good morning. Just I wanted to say that I really like the content that you guys put out, like the webinars that you're doing. It's amazing. Like,
thank you.
Really, really nice. Do you like have any kind of examples in this link through category of artists that are already maybe exploring the journey together and co-creating with their audiences, their niche audiences, instead? Because, as you said, we share. Normally, we create, we share, and they consume. Now we want them to engage. So have you seen people starting from the beginning, let's co-create this together and maybe, I don't know, explore NFTs or regular stuff to monetize along the way?
So all the names have completely escaped me, but it's more of a phenomenon amongst smaller artists rather than like the big ones, because they'll have teams that are kind of dictating their direction. But you've got the phenomenon of artists who are writing music and putting the process of it on like TikTok. And then you'll have fans who are listening to the process and will give feedback and say, oh, you should do this, or oh, you should do this, and then people will remix along the way. And this is then influencing the creative process before they come to the final song. Yeah, so I can't think of like a big name for you of somebody who's really doing this, but it's a trend that's happening on more of a smaller scale right now.
Hier noch eine.
Hi, I wanted to ask, I believe that I heard it was T-Pain say that he made more money streaming games on Twitch than he ever made from his music. And the fact that all of the superstars, as you're saying, are going to be coming less. How do you see the role of the label and the business model of the label changing in the future years to come?
So we're already seeing the growth of independent labels, as I showed a bit before. One of the reasons for this is that independent labels are more likely to offer more tailored contracts, or they just have the flexibility to do this. And major labels are starting to also offer slightly more flexible contracts. So rather than, the old stereotype of like the country song, like "Sold My Soul to the Devil" is like a metaphor for the music industry, and artists don't want to do that anymore. Go figure. And so labels are responding by basically offering, oh, we'll do your marketing for you, or we'll do your promotion for this, or we'll help you record this album or something. And the contracts are already becoming more flexible. They're becoming more supportive for the artists rather than owning the artist, if that makes sense, and owning the career. So we'll see how that changes moving forward. Obviously, being a DIY artist is a full-time job. You're not just making music, but you have to do like all your own marketing yourself, all your own production yourself. You have to like be on Twitch for 5 hours a day, and then like go and make some like Instagram lives, and then like post all the videos of your creation process. So it's exhausting, and these creators are. We asked in the survey of what success looks like to you, we also asked a question of what are some of the problems that you face? And some of them said, the exhaustion of just being on social media all the time. How do you have the energy to be creative when you do that? So this is where labels can kind of step in and offer support rather than being in charge of the whole career, which is now what artists want. The labels can come in and just offer them support in the pain points they're feeling.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That there are so many new tools, so many new opportunities that the role of labels can be growing as well. I wanted to step in before we have another comment from the audience with one remark from our digital audience live on YouTube. Christina mentioned Patreon as a platform. That artists on Patreon often co-create with their patrons or with their supporters there. So in addition to what you said about the creator economy and like the listener behavior or the consumer behaviorism, there are also new platforms and new financial models that step into place right now.
Yeah, well, streaming leaves a bit to be desired with the volume of it and the per stream rates. So artists are turning to platforms like Patreon. So yeah, that's a very good example of.
All right. Haben wir noch weitere Fragen? Wir haben schon. Seid schon ready.
First of all, thank you so very much for these super useful insights. They're very, very interesting. I was wondering. Okay, so I feel personally like overwhelmed when I think about all these different routes, all these different platforms, those monetization possibilities. And you say, okay, discover your niche, and then find out how to perfectly serve your followers in that niche. But I think I almost find it scary to do that, because like as a musician, we are creating a good that's very easy to make nowadays, where a lot of people can copy what we do, essentially. So for me, the question would be, if I find my super niche and my followers start to do what I do, so they create the same kind of music that I do because it's quite easily possible for them, do you see a way of monetizing that as well? Like, that would be like a lean-through approach, probably, right? They see what I do, they contribute, they create their own variations of the songs, of the style that I do, and how do I monetize from that? Like, because I've been wondering, because a lot of big techno and tech house labels are basically giving away all their production secrets, so which is confusing. So I wonder, what's the end game?
Yeah, it's a big philosophical question for the industry, really. It has a lot to do with copyright, which is not really my specialty. We did a project not too long ago with Utopia, which we wrote a report about it that's free to download on our site, low-key plug, so you should do that. Where we kind of address this issue. Basically in the report, they talk a lot about the need for a creator right to address basically that. because there aren't very many protections right now, and that is scary. That's, you know, fair enough. There's no guarantee that your fans won't remix your song and become more popular, and how do you monetize off of that? And there's not really a solution at the moment, so this is something that really we should be looking to address moving forward, which would be helpful if the labels, that's another pain point the labels can step in and address. Sorry if that wasn't super reassuring, but it is what it is.
I see often YouTubers that are making music with their communities, but how is this? I don't know how to say it, but how can the music put out with the lyrics that the community wrote? So have they copyright or?
No. Well, the question is whether or not they should, but it becomes more of a nebulous issue when you look at if music is becoming experiential rather than a product. And when you think about music as a product, it's a result of the recorded music industry, which is, you know, about 100 years old, maybe less. And before that, what was music? It was just something you made as a community, or you performed, or you did with other artists anyway. So in a sense, we're almost returning back to that. But the question now becomes, how do we maintain it as an industry, and how do we support the people who are making it? And so obviously, as this is very new, it sort of erupted during the pandemic because people had the time, the space, the money to really branch out into these things. So yeah, that's something that we, as an industry, need to solve moving forward.
One artist came to my mind based on the question earlier, like you were asking for artists on a bigger scale who were doing this form of co-creation. One I know is Mike Shinoda, ex-Linkin Park. He does that on Twitch, like really successful, and like incorporates his fans into the production process, and then uses their lyrics for new marketing activities like music videos, etc. And he has like a bunch of super involved fans who support him. That's if you want to check it out, that could be.
It's a great way to attract fans as well if you're showing that their input is appreciated. If you're like telling your audience, you know, you're so important, I'll put your lyric like on my promotion, or I'll add it to my album. And if they're like a really big fan of your work, that's going to be very exciting to them. So yeah, it's a virtuous circle.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. Yeah, I can't see you, the speaker.
Hello, I just wanted to ask, do you think it's inevitable as an artist nowadays to avoid social media to co-create or find your niche audience, or are there any other ways to co-create and find those fans?
Do you think it's possible for any of us to live without social media?
Good question.
Right? Like, is it not suspicious if you meet someone and you go, oh, can I add you on socials? And they go, no. You're like, who did you kill? Like, it's like, so if you're an artist and you're trying to make a career and you have no social presence, it's obviously going to be very difficult. I imagine you can do as a live touring artist, but not touring necessarily. It would be hard to tour if you don't have a guaranteed audience base where you're going, because they don't know about you. So maybe a local career, totally word of mouth, very underground, very cool, very edgy, but I can't promise you it would make like a lot of money. So yeah, I mean, it's basically like, can any of us live without social media, really? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think we call it a day for now. Many thanks, Hanna. Round of applause.
Thank you for having me.